Okay, I know what you're thinking. What does this white girl have to say about this? And before you get too riled up, regardless of what race you are, I'm going to put a link in this beautiful talk that happened less than a month ago at the Parsons School of Design with Olivier Roasting, Brandice Daniel, and Victor Gemaud. And if you do not know who those individuals are, they are heavy hitters in the fashion industry, and they are all Black. So, but I decided to talk about it today because I really wanted a right time to do this. And when I talked about Fashion Week, New York Fashion Week coming up, I decided, what I told you in yesterday's episode, to follow all of these designers that had runway shows or just they presented in New York Fashion Week in February. I thought if I was in cosmetology school, I would almost be too intimidated or not disciplined enough to go through all of these designers. And so I went through all of those designers and I followed all of them. So if you're not following them, you can go through who I'm following and you can see the designers who presented in this February's New York Fashion Week. There's a high probability that they're going to be presenting as well in the fall. And it's because of the temperature that our country is in right now. Because once I started following all of those designers, what popped up on my feed yesterday after work was all this beautiful Black fashion. And if you're in cosmetology school and you're thinking, I'm not trying to be fashionista, I'm not trying to, I just want to do the everyday wearable hair. I was like you. I thought that too. But I was privileged enough to work in a salon where I had access to fashion shows, and it completely changed. Not only I had access to fashion shows, I had access to high-end clientele that had access to high-end interior design. So all of these creative worlds help you as a hairstylist relate to your client. The more you know about your industry, the more you are going to be able to retain your client. And this talk was just so beautiful, and I don't want to say too much about, I don't want to butcher this subject, because I'll just let you know that as a hairstylist, the old school or you see it all over Instagram, this blonding factor, and you can make so much money with highlights and being blonde, and you definitely can. But I cannot tell you how many countless blonding classes I have been to, and it's no shame for anybody out there who is a blonde specialist. I'm not talking to you, I'm just talking about my own experience. And I'll ask a question. Well, what about if I'm working on a level 2, level 4 hair? Because a lot of my clients are Asian and Hispanic. So even though this episode is, titled about the Black population, I just want to let you know, as a hairstylist in this industry for 10 years, had I not worked under the individual that I worked under, I wouldn't have the knowledge and that I have about working with brunette hair. And I'm a natural brunette to begin with, and I got news for most people out there. I think there's only like 16% of people who are naturally blonde. So you've got to be able to work with brunette hair. Anyway, in this talk, a few beautiful things were mentioned, and it was candid, it was not contrived, and it was so honest. And Olivier, Mr. Roasting, talks about how he has been in the Balmain house for over 10 years now, and only 4 years has been talking about diversity. And so much of what magazines and people in the fashion world wanted to talk about when he became the creative director of that fashion house was his age. And he just talked about how only up until 4 years ago, he could start talking about how he wanted to talk about his color. He's half Black, and he's adopted, and he was raised in a white home. And the talk is 2 hours long, but the panel starts about 9 minutes in. But Victor Gemaud talked about, and so that's why I decided to go ahead with this episode today. He said, but not only Black people can be talking about this. And, Brandice Daniel she mentioned in a magazine that, I forget what she said, who it was, but it mentioned someone in the 80s saying, I hope we're not talking about diversity in 10 years. And what are we talking about now? We're still talking about diversity because it's we forget. And one of the reasons I'm passionate about it is because I live in a part of Southern California. I grew up in I say small city, big town that was predominantly white. But I am a stone's throw away from a Black population in our country that is extremely low income. And I'll tell you that there is not a single cosmetology school in that city. And it's sad because Black hair is not going away. Not only are more people immigrating from Cuba and Puerto Rico and everybody from the equator is trying to come up to the United States, you guys, but that their interracial couples are everywhere. So if you don't know, and I'm not talking about you need to be Black, I'm just saying you need to understand hair. You need to know if you can do someone's hair or not. And I'll just end with this story. My very first fashion show, one of my mentors, he's this big, beautiful, tall, white gay man. And if you're part of the fashion, excuse my cough, no COVID, promise. If you're part of the fashion world, that fashion industry world, it's like a big family. He's been in it for so many years, so he really knows these models. And there, was this, my first fashion show, the quintessential Black model, the one Black model that they had. I remember him looking me dead straight in the eye, because most fashion looks are with a high ponytail or low ponytail. Like that's the staple of the entire look, and then you kind of secure the hair as you need. But because we had to flat iron this girl's hair, and he looked at me I knew it was also because I was young. I was so green in the industry. And he said, if you ruin that girl's hair, I'm going to effing kill you. And I realized then, so he went with me over to the model, and he just said, hi, honey, and because he knew her personally, and he said, do you mind, we're going to section out your hair, but can you secure your hair in a really tight pony right here? And he pointed to the top of her crown. So I just want to point out that even though he was getting big money for this fashion show, he had I was an assistant for one of his assistant stylists. So we had 9 hairstylists to quickly do these 45 girls' hair. You have about 2 hours, if that, to do everyone's hair. And he had to ask the model to do her own hair. And so this ties together with what I'm talking about. A lot of the time in cosmetology schools, there are low-income individuals, and a lot of low-income individuals are Black, are of color. And I want to let you know that now is the time for you to, I'm not saying it's easy, but within the fashion world, and again, I highly urge you not only to click the link in this episode and listen to this talk, but go through that list of the designers in 2022 New York Fashion Week, February, and follow these designers, because they are looking to make sure that there are endowments for individuals who are interested in who are interested in fashion. Not Black fashion, who are interested in fashion, who are interested in hair, who are interested in makeup. It is a huge need. But these individuals are trying to grab your hand and lift you up at an exponential rate. And And Brandice Daniel talks about how they're trying that, they want to. Olivier, he said, I've been fighting for 10 years. And one thing that we need to make sure that when we talk about diversity, we talk about, and for me, when I'm trying to talk about black hair, is we cannot be tired of talking about it. So, but Brandice Daniel had said, it's important that we know as professionals, we're trying to talk to that next generation and trying to make sure that their dreams are funded in perpetuity, which means more than the next 3 years, more than the next 5 years, more than the next 10 years. Anyway, really hope anybody that listened to anything I had to say, whether you're in cosmetology school or not, to click on the link. And again, even though the talk is 2 hours long, the actual panel, the introduction is about 9 minutes and the panel starts about 9 minutes into the actual YouTube video.